Okay. Well, Ruth, why don't we begin by you identifying yourself? Tell us who you are.
All right. My name is Ruth Carter. I'm the owner of Carter Law Firm in Phoenix, Arizona. And my work focuses on business contracts, intellectual property, and social media law.
And you watched this interview with this reporter who got fired in Alabama?
I watched the interview, yes. I did not read her blog post yet.
Okay. Your thoughts about what you know at this point?
Well, from what I can tell, she put a post up on her personal blog that was somehow related to her experience at work. Her bosses were not impressed, were not happy, and fired her for it.
And so what are the legal issues here to be considered?
Well, now she was trying to argue that what she did should be protected under the First Amendment, and in some environments it probably is. Unfortunately, it's not necessarily in her job. So the first thing that came to my mind was, what does her employment contract say about the reasons for which she could be fired? Because if it says that she's an at-will employee, she can be fired for any reason or no reason at all, which includes because your boss doesn't like your blog, unfortunately.
One of the things she said her boss mentioned was that she acknowledged sleeping in the news vehicle during work hours. I guess that's not something you want to acknowledge on a blog if you're working.
Well, I guess it's probably not a good idea to say that you're sleeping on the job if you're not supposed to be sleeping on the job. I mean, the same thing is true about people who post, like pictures of themselves doing funny things at work, or like, there was a thing recently about like a Taco Bell. Was it a Taco Bell employee doing something like in the factory that was inappropriate? Like they were like, oh, that's all I remember now. It was a picture of like a stack of like taco shells, and the guy was licking it, and it went out, and so it was like, oh, like some factory worker may have licked your taco that you just bought. So yeah, I mean, my kind of general rule is if you're going to put it out there, you better be willing to own it, and if it makes you look bad, especially if you're talking about potentially slacking off at work. I think when you're a news reporter and you work 14-hour days, having some downtime seems to be normal, but maybe they don't want you publicizing that you sleep. I don't know.
Now, I want to be fair to her because when I interviewed her, she explained that this was all supposed to be funny. It should not have been taken seriously. And I asked her about some of the things that she listed in her blog. And when we talked about this concept of taking naps in the news vehicle, she explained that if you're going to make me work 14 hours a day, I think when we did the interview, she didn't even use the word nap. I certainly shouldn't be judged for closing my eyes every once in a while. Does any of that help her case when she says, well, it's not exactly taking a nap, I was just closing my eyes, or then when she says, overall, with all of this, I was just being funny?
That's a hard one because, I mean, what if her boss would even have a problem with her saying that she closes her eyes for 10 minutes? I don't know. And you got to look at, okay, what did you actually put out there? And when you only can go by what words you've typed, it's hard to feel the emotional impact of what you're trying to say a lot of the time. So it's hard for things like attempts to be funny or sarcasm to translate, unless your whole blog is based on being sarcastic.
And she says that she is known for being snarky and cynical. So what's the overall lesson here? Let me ask you this. She says a lot of people are coming to her cause citing the First Amendment. Do they not understand the law? Are a lot of people misunderstanding what you're allowed to do? Because obviously a lot of people think it was wrong for her to be fired.
Yeah, I think a lot of people like to embrace the First Amendment, as I do, where, yeah, it does give you the ability to voice your opinion, but you have to look at what you're saying and where you're saying it, and just because it's not illegal to say it doesn't mean that it won't have repercussions in areas like your job.
So back to my other question, what can we all learn from this? If I'm an employee anywhere, I don't have to be a news reporter, what is the lesson here? Just how far can I go when it comes to blogging and tweeting and posting on Facebook?
Well, I have two rules of thumb. One is don't put anything on the internet that you wouldn't put on the front page of the newspaper or a billboard. And the other rule is assume that everything that you put out there is going to be seen by 4 people. Your best friend, your worst enemy, your boss, and your mother. If you're not okay with one of those people seeing what you have to say, then maybe you shouldn't be saying it. And you have to accept that if you're in a situation where you are an at-will employee, you can be fired just because your boss doesn't like your blog. And you may not have any repercussions. So that's the risk you take. And if you're going to push the envelope that much, you know, you may want to do what one of my friends does, and he is an anonymous blogger. And he does blog about his job, but very few people, including myself, know who he really is.
Is this tricky legal ground for both employees and employers with all of the options when it comes to social media out there? Is there just a lot of confusion about this area of the law?
I think this is a story that really exemplifies why it's important for every company to have a social media policy and really educate their employees about do's and don'ts and think before you post, and especially if you're in a situation where, like this woman, she said she was encouraged to blog or at least tweet about work, so if people want to connect with them on a personal level, but determining where is that line between what should and shouldn't be shared.
Tell us about your book.
So I just re-released my book, The Legal Side of Blogging, How Not to Get Sued, Fired, Arrested, or Killed. And it's an ebook for bloggers written by a blogger in English, explaining a lot of the legal issues you have to think about when you have a blog.
Anything else you want to add about this topic that you think is important that people understand?
Oh God, just think before you post. What you may think is a good idea in the moment to put out there may be what you regret putting out there tomorrow.
Ruth, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Oh, my pleasure.